Hi, my name is Luyren, and here's a quick Stencyl tip. Know your collisions. I'll cover today how to set up collisions, things you can do by properly customizing them, and how to avoid common mistakes. A quick reminder, the Stencylpedia has comprehensive information on this topic. I recommend reading both the physics and collision groups articles. Before we can mess with the collision of individual actor types, you must know about actor groups. They define what the actors in each group can collide with. In a brand new game, the default groups are actors, which can collide with tiles and other actors; doodads, can't collide with anything, useful for props and particles; players, can collide with tiles; regions, a special group that you don't have to worry about, really; and tiles, which can collide with actors and players, and it's used for the tile sets in your games. To create a new group, click Create New, give it a name, and set with which groups it can collide with by clicking their names. Actor groups have more utility beyond defining the collisions. You can use them to execute code only for actors in those groups, for example, so keep that in mind. To assign an actor group, go to your actor type, click Properties, and select your desired group in this drop-down. On the Collision tab is where we can finally define collision bounds. You set collision for each animation of your actor. By default, each animation has a full solid box with the same group as the actors. You can resize the collision box freely. You can delete collision boxes by selecting them and pressing Delete on your keyboard. You can have multiple collision boxes per animation, each with their unique settings and actor groups. You can move them either with the mouse or by changing their values here. You can have circle or polygons as your collision shapes. Notice that concave shapes are not allowed when creating polygon collision shapes. As for the solid part, it's quite simple. If this actor hits something else that's solid, it will have a physical response. It will stop in its tracks or it will be pushed back. Same as if you try to run into a wall, for example. For solid collisions, you can detect the specific side of that collision. If you check the Is a Sensor box, the actor becomes a sensor, or non-solid. Sensors can still detect a collision, but there is no physical response. The actor will just pass through. You can't detect the side of a sensor collision, but you can still check specifically for them. Sensors are very useful for game collectibles such as coins or projectiles like bullets. Once again, you can change the group of each collision box. Notice that the group of the actor itself doesn't change, just the group of that box for purposes of collision detection. When checking the group of an actor, use this block. When checking the group of a colliding shape, use this block. And lastly, remember that any changes here apply only to the animation you are working on. Here are a few tricks when setting up collisions. Match the sides of all your collisions. In a platformer, for example, it's very useful to have the position of the bottom side consistent across all animations of your actor. In this animation, the point where the actor touches the ground is the same across all of them. On the same subject, it will make your life easier if all animations have the same size for your actor type. If animation size is consistent, you will avoid a ton of problems, such as actors jumping in place or being pushed around when changing animations. Now you may be thinking, that's a lot of animations, must be really boring to set all that. True, you cannot change the collision box for multiple animations at once, and doing it one by one is extremely tedious, but I have a trick for that. Fully work on one animation's collision first, and use it as a template. Once I have one animation with the collisions I want, I can duplicate it, remove all frames but one, import the new animation, and then remove that frame from the previous animation. You need that lingering frame because, if you remove all frames, you will remove the collision data along with it once you import the new animation. Now, let's combine all that. I want to make my enemy actor collide with the player in order to damage it, but I don't want them to have a physical interaction. The player is on the player group, and the enemy is on the actors group. By default, these groups don't collide with each other. If we set the collision to a group that can collide with the player, they will block each other. If we set the enemy's collision to sensor, it will fall through tiles. The solution is to add another collision box. You have the base actors group collision box that the enemy uses to walk around, and a smaller box from the bullet group we created, set to a sensor and used to detect collisions with the player. If your actors are not colliding as you expected, the first thing you have to check is their actor groups and with what that group can collide with. After that, make sure your animations are also set to the proper groups. Lastly, in the case of a collision between two actors, make sure they are not set to cannot move or cannot be pushed in the physics tab. If both of the actors are set to either of those options, they won't collide. That's just the way Stencyl's physics engine works. That's it for this quick tip. I'll leave links in the description if you want to learn more about Stencyl, check the resources I've made, and to my Twitter if you want updates on what I'm currently working on. Leave a comment if there are any Stencyl topics you want me to cover. Suggestions are always welcome. Thank you for watching.